Hi, and welcome to Check Your Thread, a podcast about sewing more sustainably. My name's Zoe, and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 13 years and am the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge, Me Made May. But like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis and the way my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me on this journey. Hi all, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well, and I also hope that all your recent sewing and sustainability endeavours have been successful and are bringing you joy. This week, I've been working on a sewing project that definitely sits within the more sustainable category of projects. I made myself a pair of stretch denim dungarees using the Mila pattern from Tilly and the Buttons about 5 years ago. They saw quite a bit of wear, but my body has changed somewhat, so they're no longer comfy. This week, I've unpicked and restitched bits of it to turn them into a pinafore dress for my daughter. I'm not quite finished yet, but so far I've managed to incorporate the original bib front, the straps, and the side button detail. So that's been a fun challenge. This week, I also got around to writing a blog post about the washable period pants kit and pattern that I mentioned before. I know that some of you were interested in that, so I'll put a link in the show notes so you can read about how I got on with that. Sustainability-wise, I tried out the solid shampoo bar. You can read my full thoughts plus lots of helpful responses on the Check Your Thread Instagram feed, but spoiler alert, I didn't love it. I've been given heaps of recommendations of other types to try, so this whole plastic-free hair care situation is still work in progress. I also ordered the weekly organic fruit and veg box. The first one will be delivered next week. There are lots of different companies that offer this type of service here in the UK, but I went with Abel and Cole. I picked them simply because I saw that there's another home further up my road that gets a delivery from them, plus they deliver on a Tuesday in my area, which suits me well. This week, 3 lovely people have signed up to support the Check Your Thread podcast over on Patreon. Thanks heaps to previous guest Guy, as well as thanks to Susie and Josie. If you've been enjoying this podcast so far and want to help make sure more episodes get made, please find the link to support the podcast on the website checkyourthread.com. And also thank you so much to everybody that shared about the podcast on your social media accounts. It really is an awesome way for other people to find the podcast. So please keep doing that. Thank you so much. The October edition of the Check Your Thread newsletter is imminent, so if you'd like to receive that, make sure you're subscribed via the link also on checkyourthread.com. The newsletter contains a little catch-up message, some links to some super interesting and relevant things I've recently discovered, plus there's the opportunity to help shape the show when I drop some sneaky peeks of the topics and guests that I've got lined up for future episodes. So let's turn our attention to this week's episode. I had the opportunity to speak to the wonderful Judith Staley, who is the creator and one of the driving forces behind the biggest sewing community on Instagram, Sew Over 50. Whilst providing a virtual hub for conversation and inspiration for everyone, Sew Over 50 also pushes for the increased visibility of older people within sewing-related industries. In this conversation, Judith told me about the rapid creation of that community and the goals behind it. She also shared her own revelations surrounding her wardrobe and sewing output, which sparked the idea for the fantastically inspiring challenge, #Sew50 Sustainable Sewing. That's a hashtag that we've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast before. It was so lovely to speak to Judith. She's such a thoughtful and insightful person and an amazing advocate for slow sewing. I know you're going to enjoy learning more about her and the Sew Over 50 community. Okay, let's go. Hi, Judith. Thank you so much for coming on the Check Your Thread podcast.
Hi, Zoe. Thank you very, very much indeed for inviting me along today.
I'm so excited to talk to you about loads of things.
I'm so excited.
Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, my name's Judith. I am Judith Rosalind on Instagram. I live in Edinburgh. I've lived here for 40 years, moved up when I was about 26, retired. So sewing-wise, I started sewing a long time ago when I did an extra O-level when I was in 6th year at school, dropped maths A-level, took up needlework O-level, which was the best decision ever. So then I sewed clothes through school, college, after leaving college, until a period when the kids were growing up a bit more and they didn't, want the clothes I made, and had a big gap, and then started again when the sewing bee came on in
Right.
2013. So that's what prompted me to start sewing again.
Right. So the sewing bee gave you the bug back.
Yeah, it definitely did. And then connecting with the people initially on Twitter, then I discovered Instagram, and that thing about sewing within a community, because before you just sewed at home on your own and went to the shop to buy fabric and a pattern. And I hated looking through those pattern books. It used to just exhaust me. I couldn't get a focus. Where now looking online and everything, it's just sort of easier and there's a lot more choice. Anyway, so I started sewing then and went at it quite
intensely.
Intensely, that's the word, intensely. Sewing everything, getting excited by everything, all the fabrics, being able to see things online, being able to see all the new patterns, what other people had made. So I sewed a lot. And I bought quite a lot of fabric, and if you're ordering one piece of fabric, you think, I may as well order another 2 or 3 to make the postage worthwhile. And then I came to a point where I thought, I was just sewing too much, producing too much, and realizing there weren't things that I was wearing.
Right. So from reading some of the posts on Instagram that you kindly highlighted for me, it sounds like you had a bit of a light bulb moment then towards the end of 2018 relating to your wardrobe and your sewing output.
That's right. I did. It was a couple of things I'd seen on television. The what's her name? Stacey Dooley, Fashion's Dirty Secrets, and then watching True Cost, the movie about the global clothing industry and its effect on people and the planet. That sort of got me thinking that actually I was sort of almost doing fast fashion with my sewing. I was just producing too much, not wearing them all, not liking them enough to keep wearing them. After watching those, I took a week off Instagram. I'd started Sew Over 50 by then, so I was on Instagram a lot. So I took a week off Instagram on my own account, got time to think, and came up with a plan of how to slow everything down and how to not produce as much. I found my notes actually after looking at that post. I'd started a little book with my notes about it, and I did those first few pages about what my plan was. So I just had a look back at it, whether I'd stuck to it. Mostly I had, initially it was mostly sewing from the stash or from fabric swaps or charity fabric or upcycling, and not buying fabric unless it was something I'd really, really thought about. And I still do all that. I don't buy fabric just on a whim. I buy it when I've thought about it for a long time and I've got a plan. And that sounds a bit boring. Sometimes you just want to rush in and have a bit of excitement, something new. And maybe I've occasionally done that.
But it's about balance, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've sort of more or less stuck to those ideas. I have still sewn a fair amount, and I've slowed it down even more over the years because I'm happy with my wardrobe now.
Yeah.
In a way, you can't see a space for new things. And then, and doing like the things with scraps and remnants. So that's sort of, I feel that's more creative. It's more.
It can be really challenging, can't it?
Yeah. Getting the pattern, getting the fabric, that's, matching those together. But then when you sew with scraps and remnants, you've got to think outside the box a lot more.
You really have to think, don't you? I completely agree. I had exactly the same kind of revelation. I guess it was probably about 2 years ago. And I just suddenly realized, I'm buying fabric, I'm buying a pattern, I'm putting them together. And I didn't feel that there was much challenge. I felt that my creative input was kind of limited beyond picking what view I was going to make,
when people who don't sew, that's amazing. You've done that. And I say, but I always think the amazing thing is the person who's designed the pattern. I'm just chosen the fabric and with a bit of skill sewing it. I know I don't want to go down that route, designing patterns for myself, but hacking and adapting things. That's good.
How well do you feel you know your own personal style now then and lifestyle needs when it comes to clothes? And what methods have helped you work out what you actually wear and need?
Finally, at age 65, I sort of feel I know what my style is. I like plain fabrics, not too much pattern, and fairly simple shapes. I know I wear trousers most of the time. I love dresses, but I know I don't wear them a lot, so there's no point in making those. I've got a few favourite patterns. The LB pullover, Paper Theory, I've made so many times with and without sleeves, with and without the collar, and all sorts of different fabrics. And that's just a basic thing that I can hack. I think partly how I got to it is then when I had that revelation and decided, I needed to sew clothes that I wear. Following people on Instagram whose style I like, I like lots of people's styles, but whose style is my sort of style, the things I want to wear, and then seeing how they put things together, and I think that helped. Seeing real people on Instagram wearing their clothes.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And you can really learn so much. So you were doing it in quite a kind of conscious kind of like, what can I learn from this kind of way?
Yes, I think I was. Yeah. And then, I see things that other people have made I love, but I just know I wouldn't wear that myself. So, and it's that thinking, a new pattern and thinking, I want to make that. But no, would you wear it? Imagine yourself wearing it. What would you wear it with? And it looks great on them, but it's just not something you would wear. So. And because, so all the really pretty things and all the flounces and dramatic things, and it's the dramatic things on Instagram that get the attention.
I totally feel the same. Yeah, like I just want a stripy t-shirt at the end of the day. Yeah. So what proportion of your wardrobe is self-made, would you say, at the moment?
I would say 80 or 90% probably of the things that I wear.
Amazing. So you've made a lot of different types of garments as well.
Yeah, I have. I mean, actually, trousers, things I've still got 3 pairs of jeans that I wear that are all ready to wear, actually. And I feel that, I haven't made any jeans because I don't really need any more at the moment. I can patch them. They've not worn out. I'm trying not to produce things that I don't need.
So I've seen that you've got a very exciting kind of slow sewing project on the go at the moment that you call your vintage linen coat project, and it started life as a tablecloth that you bought in a market in France.
That's
Is that
right. 3 or 4 years ago, I was on holiday with my sisters in the south of France, and it's actually an altar cloth, we think, because it's very long, but actually it's very wide. I think it went around the front of along an altar, and the embroidery, the frogging or whatever you call it, is on the hem is along the length of it. And so it's that, that sort of linen. It's not like linen you get now. It's very, very dense, just an off-whitey colour, which suits me. It's got a few sort of rust spots dotted along it, but not too many in one place, which somebody suggested was perhaps some candles or something. I don't know. So it's been in my stash for a few years, thinking what to make with it, because it's very narrow. I think it was only 90 centimetres wide. Obviously, I was going to have to piece it to make anything. When the challenge, this Over 50 Sustainable Sewing Challenge, I thought I'll start making it for that, but I know I wouldn't finish it. I know it's going to be a long project, and it's also Vintage September this month, so I thought it fits into that as well. So, and all the slow sewing things around. Not that I need a challenge for it. I don't do challenges very much, but it just fits into those slots.
Sometimes it's nice for a bit of extra motivation as well, isn't it?
It's the Merchant & Mills September coat that came out a few months ago. And it's a very simple style. And I planned to make a winter coat out of it. And I thought, if I make this, then I'll see if this fits and everything first. So also, friend Red Ruby Rose, she's been doing a lot of natural dyeing. She makes bags. She'd been doing a lot of natural dyeing using different plants each month. And early on in the year, she sent me some samples that she'd made, a few little pieces of fabric, some silk noil, some linen made using alder and silver birch, and then different mordants. So it's like silver birch with iron and silver birch with copper. Can
I just check, a mordant, that's like the thing that fixes the dye to the fabric?
It is.
Right?
I'm desperate to do natural dye, but I just find it hard to understand the process and the mordant and all that, So, and I think people try to use natural mordants rather than chemical ones.
Sure.
The colours are all very muted, which is what I like. All very muted, different shades of sort of just beigey, brown, mustardy colours. And I'd had these, I'd wanted to use them for something special. So then I just thought I could add these patches because I wanted to show them off because they're so lovely. Each one had a little sticker on it, like that, where she'd written on it what the fabric was and what the dye was and what the mordant was. And I really liked that. So I thought I'm going to sew those words onto the piece of fabric and embroider the tree or the leaf or the fruit of the tree. So I had to piece the linen together and cut it out individually. So I didn't want to piece it together in one big square because pattern pieces might not have fitted on. So I had to sort of do it bit by bit because I just about had enough fabric for that coat with hardly anything left.
Wow. So it's a pretty low waste project in itself as well.
Yes, it is. It is. It's turned out really low waste. And I'm just sort of on the last bit, the back, doing the embroidery for that. Then I can sew up the coat. And I've got some fabric from somebody's de-stash to line it with, which sort of goes with the colours of the patches.
Awesome. So what does your fabric stash look like these days?
It's funny, it doesn't really change a lot. It's a children's IKEA wardrobe that I took when my children moved out. It's just two quite big shelves. And then I've got another set of those little cubes that they do with 4 drawers with all the remnants and the bits and pieces that, are then used for other things. And it sort of doesn't change because I do use it. But then I buy from charity shops and de-stash instead of just buying lots of new fabric. When I see something that I quite like or think I would use, I will buy that without a plan in mind. Whereas whatever you call it, newly manufactured fabric, I only buy that when I've got a project in mind. I think, I'm getting through my stash, and then it tops up again. Yeah.
So interesting. So you're buying a lot of fabric from de-stashes and the odd thrifted piece as well.
Yes. Do you know the de-stash for kids with cancer? That I bought a few from that, and then a few that people I know have put up. And I sort of look in charity shops. I mean, obviously wasn't in the charity shop for a long time, but buying that sort of fabric, you can't plan what you're going to buy, can you? You can't go out and say, I'm looking for this. I
need some denim.
You can't do that. So it's just if you see something, then I buy it.
So you've done so much for the sewing community by founding and sustaining the Sew Over 50 community. So can you tell us about why you set it up and how it has evolved since it began?
Yes, it was completely out of the blue, really. Well, I'd been thinking about how that you didn't see a lot of older people on social media, on sewing accounts, on pattern brands, and generally in the media, it was mostly young people. And I'd been noticing that. And then Socialists, they put a call out for what's the next niche corner going to be. I think at the time there was maybe So Queer and Chronically Sewn. I think she suggested actually one for over 50s. I just thought, I could maybe do that. And then once I got the idea to do it, I thought, somebody else is going to do it. I'd better do it quickly or else somebody else will do it, because she put this call out. And I'd never done anything like that before. And so I got in touch with her, and very quickly, over the space of 24 hours, really. And I had a second account I can't remember why I had a second account on Instagram. So I changed that to Sew Over 50 and designed the logo, which is pretty rubbish, but because I'd never done anything like that before, and I've not changed it yet. And put it up, and they obviously shared it on their account, and it just very quickly was getting followers. My kids, they're now sort of early 30s. They were just, Mum's got this social media account. They kept posting about it. It's got 500 followers. They couldn't believe it. It just keeps growing and growing at the rate of about 1,000 a month generally. And we're now at about 36,000, 37,000, I think.
That's incredible. So there must have been so many people waiting for something similar.
Yeah. And there's always people turning 50 as well. So
you're not going to run out.
It's open to anybody. I mean, we have a lot of followers who aren't 50.
Yeah, I'm 41. I follow.
Yeah, we have a lot of people, but then we get people saying, I'm 50 now. I can use it officially. They can anyway, but it's just nice to celebrate, and it's just nice that turning 50 has got something really positive about it.
I'm in the party. Yay!
So initially it was, I set it up. It got very busy, and Sandy, Sunny Days 06, offered to help for a while, but she's still with me. She's brilliant, and we share the account completely. And I sort of set it up, and it would have just kept ticking along, I think, but she has lots of good ideas and to keep it moving. Yeah, so we set it up really to try and expose people over 50, to try and encourage pattern brands and things to use older models. I mean, I have heard from pattern brands that over 50s or over 45s make up about 50% of the people who buy from them and everything. And that's not reflected in what they show. Everything's changed a lot over the last few years. We've all become much more aware of having a more diverse community and reflecting that in sewing media. And being over 50 intersects with everything, with colour, with size, with, any disabilities or, all these things, we intersect all of them. So, but as it's grown, we do that. But a lot of people just like it for the actual community support that you get, inspiration that you get. People make connections with other people and make friendships.
So have you found that there has been some positive change within the representation of over 50s in, for example, the sewing magazines or the pattern illustrations and stuff?
I think it is slowly changing. There's definitely been improvements. people are beginning to realise. We had, very early on, actually, Love Sewing magazine did an article, invited 10 of us along to their studios, and they did an article about Sew Over 50 and took photographs of us. And more recently, Simply Sewing magazine did an article, and I have seen more older people appearing, and a few pattern brands always used to use some older models, but I have seen change.
Are you talking about the independent ones or the kind of more commercial
the independent
ones?
The Big Four has had a little shift recently as well. Butterick particularly, but because initially Sandy went through some of the Big Four books a couple of years ago. Hardware went through and noted how many were older models,
Wow.
and it was sort of 1% or 2%, maybe 3%. If you think of the people who buy those patterns, a lot of people are older than that. So it wasn't reflecting their market. But independent pattern companies are changing as well. Not so much with the actual patterns. Still, the pattern design, front covers, still we tend to not be used a lot, but they are beginning to show more in their stories and on their feed of sewers. We encourage people to look at a feed, scroll down and see, how many are older. It's not many, but it is improving. There's some that have a really good mix across quite a diverse mix. Others that very definitely have their young style and they don't look like they're going to change. There's a few, and it sort of grates a bit buying. I tend not to buy those patterns. But I think the good thing with the independent pattern brands, when they do use older models, they do tend to look more, like not models, like real people. And I think that's what we want to see.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like Helen's Closet, for example. She's used some older models, hasn't she?
Closet Co have been very good because they had Blanca, that's Black and Blanca, as a muse for the flight suit. So their feed's really mixed. There's some brands that have just used one. They've done one older model, but then it sort of slips away again. Yes, tick the box, but yeah. And like Merchant and Mills are quite good. Yeah, so we have seen a shift. It perhaps hasn't gone fast enough, but I suppose it's a start. But I feel if you don't keep on it, it could slip again.
Yeah, it could just be, as you say, like maybe box ticking, but it's like, come on, let's make this shift. Because often their kids are older, they've got a bit more, if they've had children, if they've chosen to have children, they've got a bit more time. Maybe they're retired or working part-time. They've got that extra bit of time.
There is all that. There are more of us in a position to spend more time sewing. Yeah, maybe have a bit more cash. Not all of us, but a bit more space in the house. And
claw some of those bedrooms back.
That's right. People who are sewing, there's probably a lot more older people. But Instagram, it might be a different balance because there might not be a lot of them might not be on Instagram, but there are still a lot of older people who are on Instagram who, for the sewing, we get people who've just set up their accounts so they can, because they've heard about it and they join.
Such a community. And it can feel quite lonely, can't it, sewing in your room?
We get messages all the time that say what a difference we've made to people's lives. People who are not able to get out very easily, especially during lockdown and all this. Yeah, been sewing in isolation before. But that's the same with Instagram, I suppose, generally, is that, it brings people together.
So through the Sew Over 50 community, you launched an amazing challenge in August of this year and an associated hashtag, which I've mentioned on this podcast a couple of times, which is hashtag SO 50 Sustainable Sewing. So what gave you the idea to start it and what was the initial goal?
Because of my shift in sewing a few years ago, it's been on my mind the whole time of doing something like that. But, you can get a bit of pushback. You're trying to stifle out, trying to tell us to not buy new fabric and everything.
Well, you can opt in or you can opt out to follow the hashtag. No one has to look at it.
Yeah. So I had been thinking about it for a while and the time sort of felt right. As a few people had suggested it as a topic as well. And we've got, a lot of people are thinking along those lines anyway. So we decided to run it in August.
So what was the challenge?
The challenge was to use fabric that was already in the system. So either in your stash, in somebody else's stash, your scraps and remnants, stuff from charity shops, clothes that you weren't wearing or clothes bought in charity shops. But again, not buying things that would be better served selling as a garment in itself, to somebody who's going to wear it, but something that's maybe in a charity shop that was lingering or didn't have a great resale value. So using those and then making a garment or accessory that you could wear, so bags and hats. And we have a hashtag as well, So50 Reworn, sharing things that you had made in the past that would fit that challenge. Generally, Instagram, not just about always having to make something new, but you can show something that you've already worn.
Yes, so important.
It doesn't have to be just new things. So you could share things that you'd made along those lines in the past. And we went along the creative aspect of this, how we were talking earlier, how it can you can feel a bit more creative doing something with fabric you haven't just bought specifically for that project.
Yeah, you have to be, don't you? You have to work it through in a new way.
And to get people just thinking about it. Back in 2018, I started listening to The Wardrobe Crisis with Claire Press. The first couple of episodes that were recommended to me that I watched was Cradle to Cradle with William McDonough and Ellen McCarthy from the Ellen McCarthy Foundation about the circular economy. I wanted to really try and put that in the hashtag, about just keeping things in the system that are already in the system. I know sustainable sewing, it isn't sustainable, but we're aiming to try and be a bit more sustainable by slowing down and by using stuff that you've already got, or rather than going out and buying new fabric. So that was the intention, and that is mostly how it was interpreted, I would say. People who hadn't tried it before tried it and found the creativity that was there. Nearly, I think, getting on for 2,000 entries.
You've decided to keep the hashtag going, which is wonderful, because as you say, it's collected so many incredible, inspiring posts, and it's featuring so many different interpretations of the theme as well. One important question. Do you have to be over 50 to use the hashtag?
You don't have to be over 50 to use any of our hashtags, and all of our challenges are always open to any age. Mostly it is people who are following the account, but we try to get it spread wider so that other people can join in. And that month, obviously, there were prizes at the end. We don't very often do prizes, but we did, and we tried to keep it relevant to the challenge in a way.
So were there any posts included in that hashtag that really stood out to you or that surprised you in some way?
So many. I was looking through, trying to pick some out, but you just get. I just wrote so many down. Maria Velo sews. She does So Organized Style podcast. Yeah. She made a jacket out of a coffee bean bag. I really like it.
Yeah, I bet you didn't predict that when you were coming up with a hashtag.
And I don't know if she'd done anything like that before either. So I think that was, she wanted to join in to support us, and it got her thinking as well.
But that's the thing about kind of sewing more sustainably. It doesn't have to be every project from now on you do has to be from reclaimed fabric in some ways. It's something you can do now and again when you fancy an extra challenge or you've got a bit of extra time, isn't it?
And you often, you do need extra time because it often involves piecing bits. I think they're the ones I like most, really, is ones where people have pieced fabrics together. And there were lots of hats, the bucket hat made out of...
I like the crystal tips one out of all the blue colours. That was beautiful.
And I love that. But you can really use little scraps to make those.
I really love it. I've said this on the podcast before. I'm probably boring people, but I really love it when people have pieced together fabric to create a new garment or an accessory, and you can really see the colour scheme that they like.
I love that. I really love that. There was just one the other day, actually, this lovely patchwork dress, and it's all lovely blues and a bit of brown, and she said it just reflects what she's just been sewing. I made a patchwork dress 2 or 3 years ago, and it was when I was sewing a bit more pattern fabrics, and it's sort of blues and rusts, and it's funny how you think they wouldn't go together, but because it's sort of part of my wardrobe, that dress just looks like my wardrobe. And so it is when people make those dresses, it's great because it just reflects their whole wardrobe.
So which makers or businesses related to sewing and sustainability are inspiring you at the moment? Your entire hashtag, obviously.
Somebody she gets me right. I always mention Trisha Morris Sews. She's in Sew Over 50.
Right.
Because she has been doing this for a long time, just not buying new anything. And she just remakes things all the time. She loves sewing, and she does lots of mending and repairing and, just not buying new stuff. And that doesn't mean that people can't, I still buy new fabric occasionally, but I just love that approach she has of remaking. And Sue Stoney, all with stuff that she's got or that people have given her. And, she's obviously passionate for sewing and creating all the time, but, she does natural dyeing and she uses tablecloths.
Yeah. She's been experimenting with zero waste patterns as well,
and I
hasn't
haven't
she?
tried that yet. Well, actually, sorry, saying that, I did the Chris Wood envelope dress. That is sort of zero waste, isn't it? More or less, yeah.
If someone is new to sewing and wants to take a more sustainable tack, what tips or suggestions would you give them? I mean, we've already said so many things already, but...
Well, try not to buy too much fabric. Before you buy the fabric, work out how much you'll need by laying your pattern pieces out, and not so you're not buying too much. And also, for me, it was deciding not to sew to a deadline as well. If you're going to a party, you're going on holiday, and you think you need something new, you don't really. You've got stuff in your wardrobe. Yeah, and I think I really admire a few people who are new sewers and already have latched onto the idea of sewing stuff that they will wear. Because I think a lot of us, when we first started sewing or first returned to sewing after a big gap, get distracted by all the pretty things. It takes a while to sort of stop and realize, no, I need to sew things that I'm going to wear.
Yeah.
And so if you can focus on that from the beginning, I think that it saves a lot of sort of waste.
Yeah. It can be tempting, can't it? Because often there may be like a discount or something within the first week or something.
That's right.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Judith. This has been so fun talking to you, and it's been really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me. And I'm really loving your podcast, listening to them. It's great. It's really lovely. Thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!